Hi, my name is Zach, and I used to be an alcoholic. I tried to quit drinking over and over to no avail. I finally managed to quit drinking, but I'm not quite sure how. It certainly wasn't from following any kind of a program. So now what I'm doing is retracing my steps in order to find that secret sauce. You have probably heard someone refer to themselves as a recovering alcoholic. I believe that people use that term because they are still battling the urge to drink. They have what is called a psychological addiction, where they think that they need it. This is different from a physical addiction or chemical dependency, which causes people's bodies to malfunction. I am comfortable calling myself a former alcoholic because I have lost the urge to drink. I no longer am addicted in any sense of the word. But what does that word mean, really? What is addiction? It is not uncommon to hear the word addiction misused. I'm addicted to these cookies. Well, no, that person isn't actually addicted. That is just euphemism for really, really, really like those cookies. They're just using that particular word to emphasize how much they enjoy the cookies. That's innocent enough, but a person can have a food addiction. But that is an entirely different story. Clearly, there are different levels of addiction. Not everything reaches the level of drug and alcohol dependence. Some, like our person's cookie addiction, don't even qualify as a real addiction. Some people actually are very addicted, but not to drugs, to ordinary things like food and shopping. And many people are exhibiting symptoms of cell phone addiction. Some people are actually addicted to exercising, a task that many of us might perhaps find unappealing. Most of the time, however, when people mention addiction, they are doing so in a context involving some kind of addictive substance. Within this context, there are two different kinds of addiction that people wrestle with: physical and psychological. These two kinds of addictions are similar enough to each other to have the same name, but they aren't exactly the same. Whether someone has one or the other kind of addiction mostly depends on what substance that individual is addicted to. A smoker who is addicted to nicotine will suffer mentally if they can't smoke, but it won't make them sick. However, an alcoholic with a severe alcohol dependency could potentially die if they are cut off suddenly. A person who is chemically dependent to a substance will suffer physical withdrawal symptoms if they are deprived of that substance. Their body has become so accustomed to the chemical that not having it there throws it completely out of whack. That type of scenario can result in major complications and health risks. Some drugs, such as amphetamines, have relatively minor withdrawal complications. The most common side effects from amphetamine withdrawals are headaches, irritability, and extreme drowsiness. Drowsiness that is severe enough to cause someone to sleep for sometimes days after quitting amphetamine use. Even after they wake up long enough to maintain consciousness, they remain extremely sleepy and absolutely worn out. That is because their body is depleted of chemicals that they would ordinarily use for alertness. That's part of what drugs do that is so insidious. They force your body to operate in ways that it was never meant to, sort of like a computer virus. The virus infiltrates your computer and tells it to do crazy things, which make it act crazy. Drugs are quite similar. They get into a person's body and make it behave in ways that it was never meant to, sending signals to release the wrong chemicals at the wrong times. It allows people to feel really, really good in the moment at the expense of their future well being. It's almost like our bodies have a feel good reservoir, and once that is empty, we just feel bad for a while. Unless we get more drugs. Drugs will artificially fill that reservoir back up, which is often what happens. People use drugs and it depletes that reservoir. Then they get more drugs to artificially fill that reservoir back up. They keep doing that and do it so many times that their body gets used to not having to do it by itself. Because that is something that the body does all by itself. It just maintains that reservoir in the background, and we are completely unaware of it doing so. But it won't if it doesn't have to. So when people stop using drugs all of a sudden, the reservoir is empty, with no way of immediately refilling it again. People become alarmed and relapse because the intuition is that they need the drugs to feel better. I remember thinking that I would never feel better without drugs. That was false, of course. The body does resume its normal functioning when it becomes clear that it isn't getting any more drugs. It does take a while, and it feels like an eternity, but it does happen. There is life after addiction, even when it feels like you will never be whole again. Never be happy. The body just needs time to get the chemicals all balanced out again. Another difficulty arises when the individual realizes that sobriety will never be as thrilling as it is to get high. It might seem like a steep trade off to go from living a life of thrilling adventure to one of day to day drudgery. But living without the constraints of chemical dependency is absolutely worth it. It is such a relief to not have to try and hide my addiction anymore. I don't have to try and manage my level of intoxication in public places. Overcoming addiction is extraordinarily difficult, but so incredibly rewarding. I can't imagine my life without sobriety. Until next time, hang in there.